My name is Mike Tabor, and today we're going over tech tips, and I've chosen a topic called the NETePay and the uploading of parameters for the devices. Now this is the VX805, this is the Ingenico ISC250, and these are with Vantiv. And there's been some changes recently, and that's why I bring this up as a tech tip. We find out people have solved a lot of their problems by just uploading the latest parameters, and I'll show you kind of how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and mute the crowd. If you do want to ask me a question, please use the little chat window down at the bottom, and we'll go from there. Great, so again, today is September 21st, so we're going to go through tech tips, NETePay, and uploading, loading the parameters onto the devices. As always, we do this every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and today is the Tech Tips Day. So I've just put together a couple of slides here, and first of all, we are talking about Vantiv. NETePay is their product that actually runs in the background, and it's a software that we download and install on one machine. Usually only one machine in one location is necessary. You would run NETePay if you had multiple locations or multiple stores. You would run NETePay at every store, and that would handle your own merchant number for that store. It requires different OCX files. Now, DataCap actually creates the program NETePay, and they actually have some OCX files that run in the background. These are kind of Windows system files, and they have been updated over time. And we notice when we see an update happen, we try to put them into our program so you, as the end user, don't need to keep downloading them over and over again. But I'll kind of go through how that works. The website here I've put on here, and we've noticed it has changed in the past, so don't hard code this in anywhere. And we use our Keystroke Update installer to actually go to this page. So I'm going to show you this page right now. Here we go. Switch over. So this is the web page that our Keystroke Update installer takes you to download drivers. And notice there's a step 1 section, installing the client controls. And there's actually 3 of them on here. There's the DSI PDCX, and we'll talk about that. That is actually for gift cards and EBT cards. There's the DSI EMV or EMV US, which is actually where you do EMV transactions with chip cards. And down below here there is a DSI client, which is kind of the background, the backbone to the whole program. It's always installed and it runs in the background. And you'll notice the step 2. Now we do ask you to download this independently if you have the device that you do want to download their latest version, which currently is 5.06.11. You'll see it referenced as 5.11 on a lot of the screens and so forth. And in downloading any and all of these 4 different programs, it does prompt you to reboot between every download. But we've tried to make it a little bit easier by including these in our setup and our setup WS program. So the only thing you really do need to download independently is at the bottom here, step 2. This would be the whole NETePay software, and this is installed just kind of like KeyPay used to be done in the olden days. This is installed on one machine on a local area network, and it handles all the traffic for credit cards. So I mentioned the link that I put on this just for people that can go get it if they need to get it or if they don't yet have the version 8 installed, which our Keystroke Update installer actually takes you there, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But just keep in mind the 3rd bullet point down here talks about Keystroke POS, our full setup.exe, and our setup.ws.exe programs will install those back-end OCX programs. Here's an example here on my screen. This is the See Windows Data Cap Controls folder. This is where they recommend we install their system files. And notice that we have 3 different files in this location. Back in version 7.15, you had other files that were installed, so if you ever opened up your Data Cap Controls folder, you might see more files than these 3, because version 7 used a different suite of files. These are the 3 files that are used by Keystroke and also used by NETePay. And notice here I've sorted these by date, and notice that this one more recent, even though it's not as recent as it was, but when it came out, it's dated 7/28, about 2 months ago and this week. It actually changed the behavior on gift cards and EBT cards. So if you're having problems with gift cards or EBT cards, the best solution is to make sure you're on the latest version of Keystroke point of sale, currently 8.00 build 36. We will be releasing 37 shortly. And this is probably the only time we actually recommend to our dealers to rerun the Setup WS program. Normally, if you went from version 7 to version 8, you'd have to run it once and you would be done. But this is our way of installing some updated files. So the Setup WS program would update these files as shown in this picture here. And this is probably the only case when you're using Vantiv with NETePay that you want to actually upload the, actually rerun the Setup WS program. So I mentioned in here both the Keystroke POS and the Setup.exe program. The Setup WS and the Setup.exe programs actually install those files. These actually require administrative privileges to actually install them in the Windows system folder on Windows 10 and Windows 7, 8, and 10. And they have to be registered, and our programs take care of that very well. At the bottom of this slide, I've kind of showed you that the NETePay software includes these 3 files. We just spoke about them, that the gift EBT is in the PDCX file, the EMV and chip is in EMV-US, and the DSI client is NETePay, and that's kind of been an unchanged file for many, many years, so we don't expect that to change. In the presentation, I did include that folder, and this is just so that people can see this if they have to replay it back to see some dates on some of the files. These files will change. I have no doubt that they will change. We find out whether we're informed by Vantiv that they've changed, or we just look and see that they've changed. We try to install the latest versions at all times, and that's how that works. Our Keystroke Update Installer. This is the easiest way to get most of the information from Keystroke. It's located in the Start menu under the Keystroke POS folder. There's a Keystroke Update Installer icon. It has a little cogwheel, and I've already opened it up. I'm just going to show you what it would look like. Let me go back a step. This actually tells you what version of builds that you're on and if you're available for new versions and builds. We are actually testing build 37. That's why the current install is one higher than the available update. Again, the full install is what you're going to want to do 90% of the time, because this full install here gets you those updated NETePay files. If you do a patch, the patch files do not update the Windows system and the Windows system files or the registry, so you want to do a full install if there's any doubt. The patch is kind of something you want to use if there's no doubt in mind. And I'm going to click on drivers here, and this is the drivers page. We actually put a note in here on the drivers page that says go to step 2, don't install those other ones, because we're kind of assuming that our Setup WS was going to take care of everything, or our setup program will take care of it. The VX805 driver below this is if you if you use what I have plugged in on this machine, the VX805, and it's a driver for USB to serial COM drivers, so I have installed that right here. Third-party drivers is where you go to get some other drivers from Keystroke, including the ISC250 driver. It's a more complex driver. It has some special settings about forcing COM ports and so forth. We have some great documentation on that driver's page, the third-party driver's page. So that's what you want to use to get the latest documentation and the drivers is through our Keystroke Update installer.
Hey, Mike, Kevin has a question in the chat window.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Nick, for reminding me here. And the chat window says, can I run the setup WS on a system where I do not have the VX805 attached to the system but is installed already? You can always rerun setup WS. You can run it 5 times, 10 times. It shouldn't matter. Make sure you're running a current version, meaning that setup.exe will put a copy of setup WS into the directory of Keystroke. So you want to make sure, for instance, in this case, if you're going to install version 8.00 build 36, install it first. You'll have a setup WS dated within the last couple of months, newer than that 7/28 date. And yes, you can just rerun the setup WS over and over again. You can also, if you have a one workstation license, some of our dealers have asked this, do I have to download and reinstall the full setup again if I don't have the setup? But you can always run the setup WS even on a workstation, even on a server, but it kind of looks kind of confusing in the add remove programs. You'll see the full install in there, you'll see setup WS in there, then you're worried if I uninstall one, does it uninstall the other? No, it doesn't, but sometimes as a quick tech tip, we will tell a reseller, why don't you just try to rerun setup WS on the server and see if you get all the latest files. I hope I answered that question. If I didn't, give me a little chat window back there, Kevin, and we'll go from there. Oh, and there is another question here. It talks about, will it update the VX805 drivers? We haven't seen a need to update these. These are drivers when you plug in the USB cable, it goes and assigns it a certain COM port. It does have a force port option. It does not reinstall those drivers. You would have to go to this Keystroke third-party drivers, or click on the VX805 if that's the device you're speaking of, and just re-download it and install that. No, we don't actually do the install of the drivers with setup or setup WS, because in theory we'd have to do the ISC250, the VX805, and many of the other devices. We'd leave it up to just making sure that the Windows system files are in place for the operating system so that it will work once you get it plugged in and the drivers are installed. So we actually don't do the drivers. We do the kind of, I call it the back end. We do the OCX files or any DLLs or files that require Windows registry to be updated. Hope that helps. So again, we just talked a little bit about the Keystroke Update installer. This is where you can get the Mercury DataCap NETePay files. That's the program that runs on one machine. You can get the VX805 driver itself. And under third-party drivers, you can actually get both of these, but we actually have lots of other resources besides just that on the third-party drivers. There's also some PDFs and instructions. Some devices don't need drivers, they just need instructions on how to set it up in Keystroke and so forth. So lastly, I'm going to just go ahead and show you the process, and I'm just going to open up Keystroke and talk about how Keystroke handles all of this. So I've just gone into Configuration Manager. I have my blank screen here. And let me kind of talk about the different options. Let's say you've been working with Vantiv and you've had an account and you've been doing credit and debit cards for years with them, and you are now ready to take chip cards. That's great. Now you might actually add in something like gift cards. They've convince you that gift cards are the greatest thing ever. I want to start taking gift cards. They've updated your Mercury Vantiv account to accept gift cards and possibly EBT or cash benefits or EBT food stamps. In doing so, they've updated their back end. There's this process in place that you go to the Vantiv, the NETePay software, and you actually do load parameters, and that goes out to the Vantiv servers, brings down what you're eligible to do and what you're not eligible to do. And that brings it down to one machine. It's kind of like our KeyPay program, but it's the NETePay holds onto that information. Now, how do you tell the device that you're going to now start taking gift cards? You say, well, you tell it, I want to take gift cards, but it doesn't know that. So what you have to do is in Keystroke, you go to the hardware menu under pin pad. I've already have this set up for the VX805 with EMV. As you see, it's on COM9. It's a virtual COM port. I've chosen COM9. I didn't want to change it from anything normal. I click on Test Pin Pad. This actually goes out and looks at your auth method, and it'll go out, and it's actually talking to NETePay that's running upstairs in this building. And it went to NETePay and said, I'm on version MPH 5.11. So we've seen two different versions, 5.06.11 and 5.11. They're pretty much the same thing. And so I say, hey, great. My machine is talking to NETePay that's running on the upstairs server. I say, okay. It asks me, would you like to download the EMV parameters to the device? This is actually taking the step that's most important. As you run setup WS and you get the right OCXs in place, when I answer yes to this, it's going to actually start talking to the device. The device is going to start talking to NETePay, and it's going to go up and it's going to go upstairs and get some new parameters. I'm not sure how my window's going to look, but I'm going to see if I can show this. Here is the device here. And when I answer yes to this, it's going to actually say, okay, I'm going to start talking to the device. Now it says loading. And notice right now at this time, this device is talking to NETePay. Outside of Keystroke, it's saying, hey, go out to Mercury or Vantiv and get me what I am supposed to do. It's kind of like an upload process that says, what am I as a device supposed to be doing? Do I take gift cards? Do I take EBT cards? Do I do EMV chip cards and so forth? And I know there will be a time when Vantiv finally has debit chip cards online, and we're going to have to run this process again. So it does take a few minutes. As you see, it's going back and forth, and then it has to actually do, you might even hear go on and off. It's going to turn itself off and on, and then it's going to reload some parameters that are going to actually eventually let it work here. If you can't see both at one time, it looks like it's finished here. On the Keystroke screen, it says pin pad test completed, and when I say OK to that, I'm back to this screen here. I say OK. That is the process in place for getting the devices, both the VX805 and the IC250. It's kind of like a firmware upload in a sense, is how you get the actual device to get updated. So that's how that works. And so what I kind of want to bring up in the summary here is a few things. One is we want to make sure that we keep our device up to date, especially if you call Vantiv and they say, oh, looks like we've forgotten to set you up with gift cards. I think we just turned it on just now. Just wait 5 minutes and it should be working for you. There might be an interim step that we have to take, which is I waited the 5 minutes, but now I might need to do upload parameters in Configuration Manager to pull that data across to the device. If you're on an older Keystroke, things change all the time. Keystroke changes, NETePay changes. It's always best to be on a current software maintenance plan so you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm stuck with some version that maybe Vantiv has changed an OCX in the background, now I got to go get it from them and so forth. So I'll open it up right now for any questions you might have about any of what I spoke about, and we'll go from there. And if there aren't any questions right now and you think of some later, feel free to give us a call here on our support line and just ask for me if you'd like, or ask for anybody here. They're all familiar with the process. And just to let you know, next week, Maggie Crowley at Cayenne is going to talk about their new concierge service. I can't wait to hear about that. I hope they bring us coffee every day. All right, thank you. And if there's any questions, give us a call, okay? Have a great day.